What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Living Freed channel. My name is Tyler Freed, and in this video, I'm finishing my series on the business and investor triangle created by the author of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. For those of you that have not seen any of my other videos, I've done 8 other videos. This is the 9th video on this business and investor triangle. I also did create a playlist for everybody so that you could easily find this series that I've done on this business and investor triangle. And like I said, this is the last video. I'm covering the cash flow section of the business and investor triangle, but I've done a video already on mission, team building, leadership, your product or service niche, the legal aspect of your business, setting up systems, communication, and again, now I'm finishing up with cash flow. So if you haven't seen those other videos, go check those out. Honestly, just go find the playlist and watch from the beginning all the way through until now, and you will have context about this business and investor triangle. But I do want to say, before I get into the cash flow section of this, to finish up the series, the business and investor triangle, it's very simple. It is just a business planning guide. I have been using this BI triangle to explain starting and running a trucking business, but you can use this business and investor triangle, this business planning guide, to start any type of business in any industry or invest in a business that's already started that you want to invest in, whether it's privately held, publicly traded, or buying a rental property, stuff like that. So like I said, I'm finishing up with this cash flow section, and I do believe that this section, I think there's a reason he put that at the bottom of this triangle, at the base, because it's the most important thing. If you don't have enough revenue to exceed your expenses, if you are not a profitable business, profitable enough to sustain running your business and growing your business, you will go out of business. It's common sense. And so right here, I have a bunch of different things laid out, written out on here. I have things like emergency fund, balance sheet, assets, liabilities, ROI, return on investment, taxes, debt, invoice, collections, revenue, expenses, profit margin, cash flow, equity. These are all things that you need to know. These are financial terms. These are financial things that you need to know in order to be successful in business. And I know finances can be very boring to people, but if you do not understand how money works, if you do not have a general knowledge about finances, then you shouldn't be in business for yourself. It's that simple. And so, I'll go through each and every one of these things. Like I said, I'm using a trucking business to explain this BI triangle. So I'll go through all these things to explain it in a way, like I said, using a trucking business as the example. So like invoicing, for example. Well, every business, charges for their services or products that they're selling. So in trucking, you pick up a load, you deliver a load, and you invoice the customer for whatever the agreed upon rate was for that load. Okay. And so for those of you that are watching this that are owner ops leased onto a company, your company is going to do the invoicing for you. If you have your own authority, you have to handle the invoicing. Pretty much, you're just billing the customer for the load that you completed. And like I said, if you're leased on, somebody else handles it. If you're not leased on, you've got to handle the invoicing. Then you got to so you send them the bill. Then you got to collect the bill, right? Collections is everything. What does collections affect in your business? It affects this thing down here, cash flow. Because without collecting on these invoices, right, that hurts your cash flow because you have expenses and they're constant. And you could be, making more revenue than expenses with outstanding invoices, right? But if you do not collect on those invoices, your expenses are going to exceed your actual revenue, it'll affect your cash flow. It's that simple. Cash flow is vital in the trucking business and in every business, because without actual cash coming into your business, you could have all the revenue on paper that you want, and you could look profitable on paper but not have enough cash flowing in when you need it. You will not be a profitable company. So it is vital, and this is a big reason, and this is a side note for the people in the trucking business watching me. This is one of the main reasons I'm a believer in leasing onto a carrier, especially when you are a small like 1 truck to 10 truck operation. I mean, you can use a factoring company to help out with this, which I would recommend doing that. That's a whole another video on a factoring company if you have your own authority. But this is a big thing: collections. When you're leased onto a company, they pay you every week. Your cash flow problem leasing onto a carrier really isn't there, okay, unless you're working for a shady character. But if you're leased onto a reputable trucking company, your cash flow needs are going to be taken care of, because again, they're invoicing and collecting on that invoice. So that's vital. Okay, again, revenue, expenses. Okay, what is that, right? It's this is elementary stuff, but let's say you gross 5,000 for the week, and your expenses, including paying your driver, were 4,000. Okay, your profit is 1,000. A lot of people, and I want to get this, through to everybody watching this. A lot of people are enticed or think that starting their own trucking business is the greatest thing in the world, because they hear, oh man, you can make 5,000 a week running a trucking business. Yeah, you can gross 5,000, 7,000 a week when rates are really great. You could even 8, 9, 10. But the gross isn't really what matters. What matters is the net. What is the net? These expenses here, that expense category is, absolutely vital to get under control, right? And if you're running a trucking business, do you know your expenses? Do you know what your insurance costs? Do you know what your fuel costs you? Do you know what your drivers cost you? What the maintenance on your vehicles cost you? Do you know what your permits cost you? All of the different subscriptions you use, load boards, you get the point. Do you know your expenses inside out? And can you project your revenue? That is why another thing, I covered the service section. That's what's so important about, building long-term relationships in trucking, especially, and just any business. Trucking's no different. Trucking's just another business in a different industry. You want to build or have long-term contracts or relationships with customers, and set prices. You want to have set prices in the long run so that you can project your revenue, and you already know your expenses. So you can project your revenue and know that you're taking care of those expenses. And as long as your revenue exceeds your expenses every month and every quarter and every year, you will be profitable. And, it's that simple. Income minus expenses equals net profit. Net profit is what matters. I have written down to like profit margin, right? So in this example, how do you figure out profit margin, right? This is, a very simple example. You grossed 5,000. That was your revenue. This was your expenses, the 4,000. You take this 1,000 and divide it by the 5,000, and that'll give you your profit margin for the week, okay? And you can do that for the month, you can do that for the quarter, for the year. It's very simple. You take net profit divided by gross revenue, and that gives you your profit margin. You need to know that. You need to know that, hey man, if one of my trucks grosses $6,000, my profit margin is this. If my truck grosses $4,000, my profit margin is this. You need to know that, because it would be different. Your profit margin is going to be less the lower the revenue than the higher the revenue. So, earlier I was talking about, people focus on the revenue aspect, and I'm not saying revenue is not important. Revenue is very important. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what matters is your profit, okay? And profit margin. Right here, I have the expense category, okay? Well, I'm going to talk about some of the things that affect this expense category. And again, when you're running a trucking business, that making sure that that is taken care of is everything. And another thing I didn't mention, fuel efficiency. Okay, are you running fuel efficient trucks, or are you running trucks that guzzle fuel? Are you, running at a safe or a slower speed, or are you a speed demon? That affects your MPGs. That affects your maintenance costs. That's in the trucking business. Again, you need to focus on that expense category just as much as that revenue category in any business, especially in trucking. So, what are things that are going to help though with the expenses, right? Well, right here I have balance sheet. Okay, balance sheet is very simple. It's assets minus liabilities plus owner's equity equals, that pretty much tells you what your business is worth. Okay, assets minus liabilities plus owner's equity is your net worth of your business. If you're 100% owner of your business, let's say you have, 100,000 in assets and 50K in liabilities, your book value of your company is 50,000 if you were 100% shareholder in your business, right? But if you have, let's say you have no real long liabilities, you would have $100,000 net worth, right, in your business book value. Okay, so assets, I'm not going to get too far into this, but like assets can be long-term assets like trucks, trailers. Those are considered long-term assets where you own them for longer than a year. Then you have things like short-term assets. Same with liabilities. Liabilities are things like owing money on a truck or a trailer, having loans outstanding. Those are liabilities. Assets are things like cash, right? I have emergency fund here. Emergency fund is cash that's, vital in trucking. I talk about it all the time. You need to have emergency funds for your trucks and your trailers and all of that. That's part of your assets, right? But what you want, moral of the story, is you want your business to have more assets, a lot more assets than liabilities. You want to increase the net worth of your company, not decrease it, right? And your profitability is going to affect this, because how do you grow this asset column here, right? How do you grow this asset column? Well, you use the cash flow, the profit, right? The cash accumulation over time to invest in more assets that cause, that number to go up, right? And what happens when you increase the value of your company and you add assets? You're adding more trucks and trailers and you're growing your fleet. You're increasing revenue and you're increasing profitability, right? And I always recommend doing a trucking business debt free if you can. Why? Because, not having any debt equals lower expenses every week and every month. When you don't have $2,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 a month in truck payments, that's $2,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 less in cash flowing out of your business and into the bank's bank account, and more cash flowing into your business and onto your balance sheet, right? Into your emergency fund and into your fund for growing your business. That's more cash coming in than going out. It's that simple. And you will grow honestly faster in terms of net worth. Um, Other businesses are different. Trucking is trucking is a high risk business. Trucking is a very capital intense business. I'm not anti debt in every industry. I'm not even really anti debt in trucking completely. But I do believe when you are small, man, I think running a debt-free business, and really even if you're big, I think that's the best way to go about it. Not to say you can't be profitable and grow using leverage. You can do that. All it does is just add expenses, and more expenses adds more risk. It's that simple. What am I doing? I'm just going through, how to think through your finances in a business or in your trucking business if you're watching this wanting to do that. Moral of the story, you need to get educated on, you know, what revenue is, expenses are, profit, cash flow, what is equity, right? I already talked about that. It's your assets minus your liabilities equals your equity. Um, and then, you need to learn about taxes. You need to learn about all the different types of taxes that there are. Okay, the difference between assets and liabilities. Uh, you know, all of these things are vital. Understanding your business's finances is literally everything. Um, it will literally make or break you. And so many people don't get educated about this subject, and they go and start a business and they try to learn through trial and error. And yes, you are going to learn a lot of things when you start and run a business through trial and error. That's really how we learn, is by learning through doing something and failing. And that's how you learn how to ride a bike. But I would highly recommend, before you go buy that truck, before you go invest money into a business, that you read books about business planning, you read books about finance, personal finance, you read books about business finance. You got to get educated. That's why I did this series, because, and I could go on and on and on in each and every one of these videos. I could probably make a 30-minute video on each and every one of these sections, but I wanted to do this series to just give a general quick synopsis on, hey, here's how you think through every aspect of a business, right? That's why I did this. And I know a lot of people don't want to watch stuff like this because it's boring. It's sitting down and learning something, but I'm doing this for my long-term or long-time subscribers and my core true audience. And so I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you want me to do more videos like this in the future, I definitely will. But that ends the series on the business and investor triangle. And so I really appreciate each and every one of you guys who are subscribed to my channel and who are not subscribed that clicked on this video. God bless. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more content like this in the future, and peace out.